Oh, Abigail, I am so glad that you could join me. And I see you've got the gloves I sent you.
Yes, I love them.
Oh, good. They're so cute. Well, I just wanted to invite you to tea so that you could see a few of the things that I got from my subscribers. This is the tea towel from the UK of the Big Ben Tower. And this is not from a subscriber, but I hope you like Earl Grey tea.
Oh, I love it. Thank you.
Good. Well, we're going to have some of that. And I baked some scones for us both. You're so cute. We've got cream and sugar, and I am going to fill the teapot with some water. So why don't we start with some tea first, and I'll go get that filled up and I'll be right back. Okay?
Wonderful.
Okay, here we go. Let me just set that there for a second while we take our gloves off, shall we? I can't wait to have some tea with these scones. And guess what? I also have some English, what's it called again?
Oh, clotted cream.
Clotted cream. That's
Clotted cream.
That's right.
I'm excited.
Good. Okay. Why don't you do the honors of opening up our tea? Okay.
Oh, that smells fantastic.
Let me pour for you. Is that enough?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. That is pretty. Pretty, pretty. You know, it's been so long since I've had tea. How long do the packets have to stay in there?
Oh, they can stay a few minutes.
Well, this looks dark enough to me. I think I'll just... Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Set that on the side of my plate there. Little bit of sugar. And some cream. The sugar that I have there is the natural sugar. Notice how it's a little bit brown.
Oh, yeah, I love natural sugar.
Yeah. I'm just going to take a sip of this before I go get our scones. Oh my goodness.
That's good, isn't it?
That is wonderful. Oh my goodness. I did not know. Well, before I take apart my napkin and put it on my lap, I'm going to go do our one last little chore and grab these scones, and I will be right back. use a spoon for the clotted cream. That is such an interesting. What is that?
It's
Is there
made
spice?
with bergamot.
Orange
bergamot.
And bergamot is what? Is it a flower or is it a fruit?
It's an orange. Yeah,
It's an orange. I taste that. That is so good. Please feel free to serve yourself.
Okay.
Oh, that's lovely. Wow, I am going to have more of that tea. Probably on another day.
I've never tried clotted cream before.
I haven't either, so. Ooh. Okay, I'll move my tea over here. Make room for my scone.
Oh, well, I just served myself with my hands. Is that what that was for?
Yes. You silly. Okay. Wait. You still have to use your hands somewhat to get it over here. Because this isn't a big enough spoon. Here, let me help you. Looks like you're having some trouble with that. Okay. There we go. That might be just a little better. Let's get a little more out of there. It really actually should be exciting to try, I think. Okay. Take another sip of this again.
It's so delicious.
Okay, so
Nice and warm.
oh yeah. Hopefully that'll help the clotted cream to melt a little bit. Hopefully. Let's see. I guess I'm going to cut mine down the middle and try some cream on the sides. I know I'm not being proper. I just know it.
Look at all that melty chocolate in there.
Melty chocolate. I got some chocolate on the spoon. You wouldn't be able to take me to a fancy,
A proper tea.
a proper tea. But we'll have tea on my property.
It's like fancy butter.
It is. It's like fancy butter. Okay, I got it on the side of mine, and I'm going to try it like that.
I guess I could use a fork.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
I'm in love. Clotted cream. Wow, and the scones are fantastic. What do you think? Wow. Happy, happy taste buds. I put this little
Ring for service.
yes, we can pretend that we have somebody waiting on us.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Oh, Sprat. Okay. Well, while we're eating, I want to show you the other couple of things that I got from my lovely friends in the UK.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that neat? The Oxfordshire coloring book.
Street, Oxford.
Yeah. Well, maybe you'd like to do a little bit of coloring while I read out of...
The History of England by Jane Austen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
From what I read, I think it's supposed to be a spoof, but Jane Austen really did write it.
And that's gonna be funny.
Yeah. So.
I think I'd like a little more tea.
Oh, absolutely. Will you need another packet, or do you?
I might just re-steep this.
Okay. Let me have your cup. There we go. I have a bit of this before I read. And here's the thing, I don't know if chocolate in scones is something that is British or not, but it sure is yummy.
It sure is.
And it actually really does not conflict at all with the taste of the tea. Yeah.
Orange and chocolate go well together anyway.
Well, that's right. All right, the History of England, Jane Austen. Now, I don't think I need to read the introduction. I think I'll just go straight over to her first entry of Henry IV. Okay. Henry IV ascended the throne of England, much to his own satisfaction, in the year 1399, after having prevailed on his cousin and predecessor Richard II to resign it to him and to retire for the rest of his life to Pomfret Castle, where he happened to be murdered. It is to be supposed that Henry was married, since he had certainly 4 sons, but it is not in my power to inform the reader who was his wife. Be this as it may, he did not live forever, but falling ill, his son, the Prince of Wales, came and took away the crown, whereupon the king made a long speech, for which I must refer the reader to Shakespeare's plays, and the prince made a still longer. Things being thus settled between them, the king died and was succeeded by his son Henry, who had previously beat Sir William Gascoigne. How do you think you pronounce that word?
Gascoigne.
Gascoigne? Okay. Now see, I can't tell if this is supposed to be serious or not. She was young when she wrote it. Isn't that pretty?
Yeah, that's gorgeous.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to take the page out of the book, or do you want to just try to crease it or something. Let's see what this. Jane Austen was an English novelist whose work of romantic fiction set among the landed gentry earned her a place as one of the most widely read writers in English literature. Her realism, biting irony, and social commentary have gained her historical importance among the reading public, scholars, and critics alike. During this period, she experimented with various literary forms, including the epistolary novel. I don't think that this really explains why she wrote these particular vignettes on history, but
well, that's downright pink.
is it?
Yep.
Did you not want pink?
I thought it might be more of an orange, but I'm okay with that.
Oh, this piece has a lot of chocolate in it. I'll read Henry V after I get my next cup of tea. Okay, let's see. Service. I need somebody to put the sugar in my tea, please.
Yes. May I please help you?
Yes, ma'am. Would you do it for me?
I see you invited me as your servant.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Get the tea bag off.
Oh, you're even gonna let me use your spoon. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
So welcome.
I guess I'll let that sit for a little while. I imagine you're supposed to put the cream and sugar in after you steep your tea. But it all works out in the end. Okay, so let's go to Henry VIII. Ignorant Americans. Yeah. Ignorant Americans come to tea. Yeah. Okay. This prince. This is Henry V. Okay. So this prince, after he succeeded to the throne, grew quite reformed and amiable, forsaking all his dissipated companions and never thrashing Sir William again. During his reign, Lord Cobham was burnt alive. Ooh. But I forget what for. His Majesty then turned his thoughts to France, where he went and fought the famous Battle of Agincourt. He afterwards married the king's daughter, Catherine, a very agreeable woman by Shakespeare's account. In spite of all this, however, he died and was succeeded by his son, Henry. Okay, moving on to Henry VI. I cannot say much for this monarch's sense, nor would I if I could, for he was a Lancastrian. I don't. What is a Lancaster? Yeah, I don't know. Lancaster, right. I suppose you know all about the wars between him and the Duke of York, who was of the right side. If you do not, you had better read some other history, for I shall not be very diffuse in this, meaning by it only went to vent my spleen against and show my hatred to all those people whose parties or principles do not suit with mine, and not to give information. Yes, I think this is supposed to be humorous. This king married Margaret of Anjou, a woman whose distresses and misfortunes were so great as almost to make me who hate her pity her. It was in this reign that Joan of Arc lived and made such a row among the English. They should not have burnt her, but they did. There were several battles between the Yorkists and Lancastrians, in which the former, as they thought, usually conquered. At length they were entirely overcome. The king was murdered, the queen was sent home, and Edward IV ascended the throne. Okay.
Take some time out of your busy life to relax and unwind with this feel-good coloring book designed for everyone who loves Oxfordshire. From iconic architecture to picturesque vistas, you are sure to find some of your favorite locations waiting to be transformed with a splash of color.
Nice. Nice. I have some good friends from my channel.
Yes, you do. They send you very cool things.
Yes.
Shame that one of them couldn't be having a tea party with you.
I agree. I would think it was such a privilege. And I've actually thought about that a lot in the last week, as I've had a few people tell me that they thought that as they listened to me on my channel, that it felt to them like they were having a conversation with a friend. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wouldn't that be lovely if I were able to actually have and invite people to my house and be part of my videos.
That would be cool.
Maybe one day I'll be able to do that. And I do think that if anyone were willing to spend the money to come out to see me, that would be a privilege and an honor to actually have somebody join me for a day and make a video.
That would be great.
Yeah.
You could see the whole behind the scenes of making these videos.
Yes. But I have to say I'm very, very glad that you're here with me today, Abby. All right. Edward IV. This monarch was famous only for his beauty and his courage, of which the picture we have here given of him and his undaunted behavior in marrying one woman while he was engaged to another are sufficient proofs. His wife was Elizabeth Woodville, a widow who, poor woman, was afterwards confined in a convent by that monster of iniquity and avarice, Henry VII. One of Edward's mistresses was Jane Shore, who has had a play written about her, but it is a tragedy and therefore not worth reading. Having performed all these noble actions, His Majesty died and was succeeded by his son. I sure hope we see a change in the weather soon.
It's very British, this rain we're having.
Oh, that's right.
This is what a tea party must have felt like.
Well, way back in the day, women occupied themselves. I think the women of more nobility, anyway, aristocratic people, looked for things to do like maybe coloring or not coloring with these utensils as we know them, but and sewing, quilting, needlepoint, learning music, reading, you name it.
I wouldn't have been any good as an aristocrat then.
Yes. We would have been restless, because I wouldn't have been either, I don't think.
I would have been in the garden.
Oh, yes. Well, maybe there were some nobility that actually went out into the garden. Okay, here's Edward the Fifth. Look at it, it's just like 3 lines. And the first 3 words are this unfortunate prince. This unfortunate prince lived so little a while that nobody had him to draw his picture. He was murdered by his uncle's contrivance, whose name was Richard III. Wow. She doesn't say how old he was when he was killed. Richard III. The character of this prince has been in general very severely treated by historians. But as he was a York, I am rather inclined to suppose him a very respectable man. It has indeed been confidently asserted that he killed his 2 nephews and his wife, but it has also been declared that he did not kill his 2 nephews, which I am inclined to believe true. And if this is the case, it may also be affirmed that he did not kill his wife, for if Perkin Warbeck was really the Duke of York, why might not Lambert Simnel be the widow of Richard? Whether innocent or guilty, he did not reign long in peace, for Henry Tudor E. of Richmond was as great a villain as ever lived, made a fuss about getting the crown and having killed the king at the Battle of Bosworth. He succeeded to it. That's a lot of killing.
Yes, it is.
That's turning out nicely.
Yeah. A little like a mosaic or something.
How did you decide on that picture? I'm curious.
I chose the colors first.
I see.
And then decided they went here.
Yeah. Clever. I'm very surprised at how much I liked the clotted cream. So,
Would you like a little more of my scone?
oh, are you getting full? Well, regardless, yes. We have more in the kitchen. So if you get a hankering for more later on, please feel free to go get another one. before I can bring it. Thank you.
Welcome.
Wow. When I first tasted the clotted cream without the scone, I didn't think I would like it. But now that I've had it on there, that changes everything.
Yeah.
This is to show everybody that I am not a proper British person.
Well, even they must have gotten their scone on the spoon.
I wonder.
I suppose they wouldn't have tried a chocolate scone, though, maybe.
Yeah, maybe not.
I'm going to put oranges where there aren't any
Mm.
in the drawing.
But they do look like they're in the drawing.
There's a couple, but I'm going to sneak them in behind here.
Oh, I see. That's right. You can just put in whatever you want. I am so amazed at how good this tea is, and I want to have another cup. If you complete that, would you pass me a new tea bag?
Yeah, I think I'm going to have another one as well. Do you think the water's still hot enough?
It may not be.
Or sprat when you need them.
Let me see. It feels still pretty hot to me. Thank you, my dear. Here we go.
Found a new favorite tea.
I thought you'd had this before.
I said you have. I've tried Earl Grey, but evidently you haven't.
Yes, you're correct. I have found a new favorite kind of tea. Well, I usually only have the herbal, American herbal tea, because I didn't want to be too hyped up.
Caffeinated.
Caffeine gets me so hyped up. And but I am going to make an exception today.
Is it enough?
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you. Lovely. It also kind of reminds me a little bit of like flowers. Do you think there's any floral in it? May I see the can? Maybe it will say what's in it.
Oh, bergamot, yeah.
Okay, it says, in ingredients are Ceylon black tea. Well, that doesn't tell you.
It doesn't talk about the bergamot?
Well, yes, it does. Our finest high-grade Ceylon black tea with tantalizing aromas of fresh bergamot to whisk you away to lands far away.
Well, it doesn't tell you what bergamot is. I can't remember exactly what it is.
But it does, look, it shows an orange, like you said. And there's oranges all over the teapot. But still, well,
I think it's an orange flavored herb of some kind. I can't remember.
I love it.
Lest I be ignorant, I don't think I'll suspect anymore.
Okay.
I can't remember if I put sugar and cream in mine yet.
It looks like the cream is left over from last time.
I think so.
Okay. I am going to read about Henry VII at this time. The monarch, soon after his accession, married the Princess Elizabeth of York, by which alliance he plainly proved that he thought his own right inferior to hers, though he pretended to be contrary. By this marriage he had 2 sons and 2 daughters, the elder of which daughters was married to the King of Scotland, and had the happiness of being grandmother to one of the first characters in the world. But of her I shall have occasion to speak more at large in future. The youngest married first the King of France, and secondly the D. Look at it, it says the D of Suffolk. What do you think of the D?
Duchess or
Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay, yeah. By whom she had one daughter, afterwards the mother of Lady Jane Grey, who, though inferior to her lovely cousin, the Queen of Scots, was yet an amiable young woman and famous for reading Greek, while other people were hunting. It was in the reign of Henry VII that Perkin Warbeck and Lambert Simnel, before mentioned, made their appearance, the former of whom was set in the stocks, took shelter in Beaulieu Abbey. Beaulieu. That looks French. Beau. B-E. Yeah. Beaulieu. And was beheaded with the Earl of Warwick, and the latter was taken into the king's kitchen. His Majesty died and was succeeded by his son Henry, whose only merit was his not being quite so bad as his daughter Elizabeth. Well, I'm not going to be able to get through this whole book. But I'm not going anywhere yet. We've got some tea to finish up. But I am done with my scone. Was that a bit much for you? Just
I'm just distracted by my coloring.
ah, I see. Okay. Well,
where did we leave off? Henry VII or Henry VIII? Henry VIII is the one to read about.
Oh, yes.
Oh, she doesn't spend much time on him.
May I color in your spot?
Oh, please do. It would be an affront to my readers were I to suppose that they were not as well acquainted with the particulars of this king's reign as I am myself. It will therefore be saving them the task of reading again what they have read before, and myself the trouble of writing what I do not perfectly recollect by giving only a slight sketch of the principal events which marked his reign. Among these may be ranked Cardinal Wolsey's telling the Father Abbot of, how do you say this, Leicester?
Yeah, yeah. I have never known how to say that word.
Leicester Abbey, that he was come to lay his bones among them. The Reformation in religion and the king's riding through the streets of London with Anna Boleyn. It is, however, but justice and my duty to declare that this amiable woman was entirely innocent of the crimes with which she was accused, and of which her beauty, her elegance, and her sprightliness were sufficient proofs, not to mention her solemn protestations of innocence, the weakness of the charges against her, and the king's character, all of which add some confirmation, though perhaps but slight ones when in comparison with those before alleged in her favor. Though I do not profess giving many dates, yet as I think it proper to give some, and shall of course make choice of those which it is most necessary for the reader to know, I think it right to inform him that her letter to the king was dated on the 6th of May. The crimes and cruelties of this prince were too numerous to be mentioned, as this history, I trust, has fully shown, and nothing can be said in his vindication, but that his abolishing religious houses and leaving them to the ruinous depredations of time has been of infinite use to the landscape of England in general, which probably was a principal motive for his doing it, since otherwise, why should a man who was of no religion himself be at so much trouble to abolish one which had for ages been established in the kingdom? His Majesty's fifth wife was the Duke of Norfolk's niece, who, though universally acquitted of the crimes for which she was beheaded, has been by many people supposed to have led an abandoned life before her marriage. Of this, however, I have many doubts, since she was a relation of the noble Duke of Norfolk, who was so warm in the Queen of Scotland's cause, and who at last fell a victim to it. The king's last wife contrived to survive him, but with difficulty effected it. He was succeeded by his only son, Edward. It's a very different account. Skip Edward and go straight to Mary.
Do that.
Mary's more interesting to me.
I'm enjoying your reading. It sounds very nice.
Oh, good. Mary. This woman had the good luck of being advanced to the throne of England, in spite of the superior pretensions, merit, and beauty of her cousins, Mary Queen of Scotland and Jane Grey. nor can I pity the kingdom for the misfortunes they experienced during her reign, since they fully deserved them, for having allowed her to succeed her brother, which was a double piece of folly, since they might have foreseen that as she died without children, she would be succeeded by that disgrace of humanity, the pest of society, Elizabeth. Many were the people who fell martyrs to the Protestant religion during her reign. I suppose not fewer than a dozen. She married Philip, King of Spain, who in her sister's reign was famous for building armadas. She died without issue, and then the dreadful moment came in which the destroyer of all comfort, the deceitful betrayer of trust, reposed in her, and the murderess of her cousin succeeded the throne. She has a lot to say on Elizabeth.
Read Elizabeth. I'm very interested. I missed history in high school.
Did you know?
I probably got just a tiny bit of this information out of school, but this is like hearing it for the first time.
I never learned about British history in high school. It was all American history.
Okay.
For the most part. We do a little world history and then...
Yeah.
But it's just a really loose smattering of things. Elizabeth. It was the peculiar misfortune of this woman to have bad ministers, since wicked as she herself was. She could not have committed such extensive mischief had not these vile and abandoned men connived at and encouraged her in her crimes. I know that it has by many people been asserted and believed that Lord Burleigh, since Sir Francis Walsingham, and the rest of those who filled the chief offices of state were deserving, experienced, and able ministers, but oh, how blinded such writers and such readers must be to true merit, to merit despised, neglected, and defamed, if they can persist in such opinions, when they reflect that these men, these boasted men, were such scandals to their country and their sex as to allow and assist their queen in confining for the space of 19 years a woman who, if the claims of relationship and merit were of no avail, yet as a queen and as one who condescended to place confidence in her, had every reason to expect assistance and protection, and at length in allowing Elizabeth to bring this amiable woman to an untimely, unmerited, and scandalous death. Can any one, if he reflects but for a moment on this blot, this everlasting blot upon their understanding and their character, allow any praise to Lord Burleigh and Sir Francis Walsingham? Oh, what must this bewitching princess, whose only friend was then the Duke of Norfolk, and whose only ones now Mr. Whittaker, Mrs. Lefroy, and Mrs. Knight, and myself, who was abandoned by her son, confined by her cousin, abused, reproached, and vilified by all, what must not her most noble mind have suffered when informed that Elizabeth had given orders for her death?
My goodness.
Yet she bore it with a most unshakable fortitude, firm in her mind, constant in her religion, and prepared herself to meet the cruel fate to which she was doomed, with a magnanimity that would alone proceed from conscious innocence. And yet could you, reader, have believed it possible that some hardened and zealous Protestants have even abused her for the steadfastness in the Catholic religion, which reflected on her so much credit. But this is a striking proof of their narrow souls and prejudiced judgments who accuse her. So she really liked Mary and really hated Elizabeth for the execution.
Are you talking about Jane Austen?
Yeah, Jane Austen.
Yeah,
I always liked Mary, Queen of Scots. But most people did. It's funny, she spends most of her time on Elizabeth talking about how horrible she was for killing Mary.
Is that all you're going to read on Elizabeth?
I'll continue.
Okay.
Let's see. But this is a striking proof of their narrow souls and prejudiced judgments who accuse her. She was executed in the great hall of Fotheringay Castle, sacred place, on Wednesday, the 8th of February, 1586, to the everlasting reproach of Elizabeth, her ministers, and of England in general. It may not be unnecessary, before I entirely conclude my account of this ill-fated queen, to observe that she had been accused of several crimes during the time of her reigning in Scotland, of which I now most seriously do assure my reader that she was entirely innocent, having never been guilty of anything more than imprudencies into which she was betrayed by the openness of her heart, her youth, and her education. Having, I trust, by this assurance entirely done away every suspicion and every doubt which might have arisen in the reader's mind from what other historians have written of her, I shall proceed to mention that remaining events that marked Elizabeth's reign. It was about this time that Sir Francis Drake, the first English navigator who sailed around the world, lived to be the ornament of his country and his profession. Yet great as he was and justly celebrated as a sailor, I cannot help foreseeing that he will be equaled in this or the next century by one who, though now but young, already promises to answer all of the ardent and sanguine expectations of his relations and friends, amongst whom I may class the amiable lady to whom this work is dedicated, and my no less amiable self. Though of a different profession, and shining in a different sphere of life, yet equally conspicuous in the character of an earl, as Drake was in that of a sailor, was Robert Devereux, Lord Essex. This unfortunate young man was not unlike in character to that equally unfortunate one, Frederick Delamere. The simile may be carried still farther, and Elizabeth, the torment of Essex, may be compared to the Emmeline of Delamere. It would be endless to recount the misfortunes of this noble and gallant earl. It is sufficient to say that he was beheaded on the 25th of February, after having been Lord Lieutenant of Ireland, after having clapped his hand on his sword, and after performing many other services to his country. Elizabeth did not long survive his loss, and died so miserable that were it not an injury to the memory of Mary, I should pity her. Wow.
Yes, yes.
What a recount of Elizabeth.
Yeah.
It was very personal for her, evidently.
Mm-hmm. For Jane Austen.
For Jane Austen, yeah.
what I read earlier was that Jane Austen was very young when she wrote that pamphlet.
I'm sure she was. It sounds like somebody young.
Yes. But of course very literate and gifted.
Yeah, obviously.
Why don't we go ahead and bring this tea party to a close and pick up a little bit? Will you help me?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you, my darling, for coming to visit me. Let's just put our gloves on for fun. I know you gotta go, but it makes me feel very British. Or we could pretend we're going to a wedding. Oh, darling, it was so sweet of you to stop by, my precious. Oh, look at you. Okay. I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.